What's up YouTube, Capital G here, got some Dragma duels for you guys to check out, showing you what this new archetype is all about, coming out of Rise of the Duelist. You guys know exactly how I feel about Dragma. I made it very clear in the video where I reviewed them. I thought this was a meta deck in the making. There were some people telling me I was completely wrong, this deck is trash, this YouTuber said it sucked, and man, I just don't see that, guys. I think this deck is incredibly good. Obviously, it goes without saying this deck was specifically designed to hate on extra deck cards, and if you're playing a combo deck that needs the extra deck monsters to win the duel, you're not gonna have the greatest time playing against Dragma, because that's what their bread and butter is. Now, even against the control matchups, I think that this deck is still perfectly fine. It's not as good, not as potent as it is against combo, but you still can just kind of live and die off of your trap cards. Anyways, first duel is going to be against Adamancipators. We all know how disgusting that deck can be, and with Adamancipators, you're obviously going to try to get to the water non-tuner in your first turn. You don't really have a lot of control over it a lot of times unless you have the field spell, but you're just kind of hoping that you're going to get to it. This is not bad. Get to Quackamiru Dragon to play around hand traps. That's fair enough, and he is going to get pluses off of these activations. He's just not getting the plus he's looking for. Unfortunately, while he can play against hand traps, he cannot play against a literal hand trap in Infinite Impermanence, as Quackamiru Guardian is absolutely powerless to stop that. So now that his opponent has committed to the board, he can continue, but he's not going to get what he wanted. He's going to get some plays, even searching Nibiru, but this deck is really not susceptible to Nibiru, and he's going to have a way of playing around it. Now look, I'll just admit this was lucky. Anytime you top deck Lightning Storm and your opponent has 3 monsters on field, all which are susceptible to card destruction, I mean, that's just kind of a free win. But regardless, he's going to also access his way of playing around Nibiru in the way of Millennium Eyes Restrict, and this is one of the reasons this deck is so strong. You activate Disciple of Nadir, which, if you don't know about this archetype, this is your basic standard Rhoda for their archetype, but in addition to just getting a Rhoda, just getting a +1 in Eclessa, you'll also get to send Nethys to the graveyard, bye-bye to your opponent's other card on the field. Eclessa is a +1 as well. He can now just special summon his copy of Maximus, since he did have a fusion in the graveyard. Maximus actually not only is a body, but it sets up for even more advantage. And basically, a lot of these builds of Dragma, they're just kind of playing a lot of cards that activates in the graveyard. They don't really summon these cards, but you play things like the Wind Pegasus at Ignister. You play some of the new Jim Cook Fossil Fusion monsters, because these cards can all activate from the graveyard, you know, very similar to like Nethys. These cards don't need to hit the field to pay for themselves. So this will almost certainly end up being an OTK, or at least it'll be close to an OTK. His opponent cannot use Nibiru again. Even if he did, he would probably just activate the Millennium Eyes Restrict. He's also going to get himself a summon from the deck from that bastard dragon. Oh man, what's that TCG name gonna be? Keep in mind, he could have used the Rhoda effect from the bastard dragon as well, but his opponent doesn't have anything. Second duel is against Fossils. And both of these decks can play the Fossil Fusion monsters. It's a dinosaur build of Fossils. Now, you guys are watching 2 different variants of the Dragma deck. This one is playing the Spellbook, like a small Spellbook engine, because obviously the entire archetype is Spellcaster based. I don't love this archetype going first. I'll say that. If there is one thing, your turn 1 plays are not really all that great. I mean, summoning Eclessa, she's a +1. You got Impermanence, and then you got Encounter. So you have a couple ways of disrupting your opponent, but it's never going to be overwhelming. This is not a deck where you're going to be able to inherently just get a whole bunch of, it's not like Guru where you're playing a bunch of floodgates and stuff like that. Now, he is going to summon from his hand, and this guy right here, man, I think I may have underestimated this card. The Elvis, this is the one that lets you fusion summon using your opponent's monsters, and keep in mind, it's a quick effect. So even if your opponent's trying to attack you, you can just fusion summon, you can go into your big dragon. If they can't kill it, then they're just going to get beat down by it. If they do kill it, that doesn't matter either, because it just floats from the graveyard, and then you can just start getting those searches and doing that stuff and whatnot. Now, he could have just, I mean, it was an OTK either way, but he could have just used Nethys with the Rhoda card, and he could have just popped the Miscellaneous Source on field and just clearly killed it. Now, I don't really put that much stock into, or that much weight into this duel, because I don't think you should be running like the Fossil Fusion. Like, I don't think the Jim Cook cards really work with dinosaurs, even though he has dinosaurs in his deck. They're not dinosaurs, they're like fossilized dinosaurs. You guys know what I mean. Anyways, next duel is against Eldritch, which is obviously one of the meta decks, but Dude, you can't in this format. I mean, well, this format doesn't exist. When Yu-Gi-Oh comes back, people are gonna learn stop overcommitting to the field because Lightning Storm is a thing. And I know like Eldritch. How do you? Oh my God, it's so different. I'm just gonna keep calling him Eldritch because Eldritch is, well, I guess I just pronounced it. Eldritch can play Solemn Judgment, and if you overcommit to the field against a Go Second deck, don't be surprised when you get blown out by things like Lightning Storm. Now, luckily, he's able to at least summon his Golden Lord, but that doesn't do anything. All he does is he just summons a card that we just saw in the last duel. He just, fusion summons with it. And in situations like this, you can even get killed in the first turn. I mean, you seeing this much, well, I mean, you see a scoop phase there, but you see that this deck does have swarm ability, but it's also, in my opinion, at its heart and core, it's still just like a control deck. Final duel is going to be against Double L's, my beloved Lunalights, which obviously rest in peace to Lunalight Tiger. It's not what it used to be, but it's still a deck that has some power if you're going to blind second and whatnot. He's going to I believe make a couple big fusion monsters. At the end of the day, I feel bad for Lunalights. I kind of want Tiger to go to 1, man. Give us our Tiger back. If Tiger was at 1, obviously Lunalights would still be highly competitive. They would just have to do a lot more of this. They would have to rely on the fusion summons when they didn't have access to Tiger. Now he is going to go for Panther Dancer, but he also has Tiger or the Wolf on board, and that allows him to go for my favorite card in Yu-Gi-Oh, Leo Dancer. But this be the problem with this play, and I was like, okay, he's gonna get OTK'd. Leo Dancer, she is not one to sleep on. I mean, she does 7,000 damage by herself basically, but that's not going to work. He's going to special summon the Nellius from his hand, and then you can activate the effect as a quick effect. And the thing that's such a pain in the butt about this card, it doesn't target, because Leo Dancer does have targeting immunity from your opponent's cards, but it doesn't matter when your card doesn't target, and obviously she's big enough. So he's going to go ahead and he's going to summon all of these big boys during his opponent's turn. Even Panther Dancer is going to be negated by the Fleur-less, the Dragma Knight. Oh goodness, I'm not French. Don't knock my pronunciations. Keep in mind, she cannot, the Ecclesia cannot be destroyed by Panther Dancer because she is an extra deck monster, and she is susceptible to being destroyed by battle. She's immune to card effects, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, you can definitely make her, you can definitely destroy her with battle. So in these 4 duels, you can see some of them were one-sided because of Lightning Storm, but I mean, the deck does have power. I think it is a little susceptible if you make it go first. Like, some of the plays are not going to be that overwhelmingly powerful, but I think it's a very, solid deck. Now, you guys are looking at the builds that you saw in those 2 duels, and keep in mind, they are different builds. You got a little bit of different ideologies going on here. Like, you're going to see a small spellbook package in one of the builds. I think it's cool that this card, Fusion Dispatch, actually has a place. This was a card where kind of looked at it at first and I was like, well, you can special summon a fusion material, but then you can only summon fusion monsters for the rest of the turn. That felt a little like maybe it was a little too restrictive. However, with this deck, it actually works because this deck doesn't really need to use its extra deck at all. And being able to summon this dude from the deck is obviously good because not only are you getting a monster, but you can use his effect as a quick effect during your opponent's turn. So you might not even need to use his effect during that turn. So that's really nice. I think it'll be interesting to see. Well, no, I mean, I said in my video that this deck would probably not use Extravagance because you need the extra deck, but you don't summon from the extra deck, if that makes sense. The early builds that I've seen of Dragma are not actually using, they're not using Extravagance, which I'm perfectly fine with. This deck can generate enough advantage. You see that a lot of these builds are designed to go second. The Dark Ruler No Mores, the Lightning Storms, and the main deck. I don't know about Pot of Avarice. This feels like a card that could easily be dead in your first turn. I do understand that you're sending cards from your deck, or from you're sending cards from your extra deck to the graveyard. I'm not certain about this one though. Maybe that is going to be the way that this deck does find a way to draw cards, because if you think about the grand scheme of things, pretty much between Pot of Extravagance, Pot of Avarice, and Pot of Desires. I mean, you gotta find like one of those cards has to work for your deck, and maybe Avarice can work in this deck. I'm not completely sold on this deck's ability to load its graveyard up fast enough, but yeah, these are what some of the preliminary builds are looking like on paper. If you guys are interested in either one of the builds, of course, they will be in the description below. Thank you guys for watching. As always, subscribe if you have not already, and turn on that notification bell for daily videos. Also, let me know, what is your opinion of Dragma? Do you think it's trash? Do you think it has meta potential? Do you think it will be meta? Leave that in the comment section below as well.